Okay, great. So we're kicking off module two, focusing on teams, but just a quick recap of what we talked about last time. We really encouraged you all to think about deeper signals as more of a partnership, a way to scale and grow your own individual coaching businesses and practices, and not just think of it as a tool you can use within your practice. So we talked about how to differentiate your brand. Think of it as a Nike Apple Watch collab, that these two strong brands coming together can be even stronger. And the credibility that we bring, that our founders bring, that the science that we use, the network that we have, we want to share that with you. We want you to use our marketing materials, our testimonials, our case studies. And the more we can do to support you and help give you that spotlight, I think that's a big differentiator when it comes to other vendors or companies you might work with, is we are all in when it comes to that transparency and that just the generosity of sharing our resources and materials and creating new things, and how we can help you take that individual coaching opportunity and scale it to include teams, to assess more levels below that senior leadership, to look at the data analytics across an organization. The beauty of our tools are that they're accessible and that they're very scalable. And we'll continue with that theme today when we talk about teams, and also in the next module when we talk about how to really embed deeper signals into an organization in a more holistic fashion. And then, of course, we talked about deepening those coaching engagements, that multi-method approach. So you're having those coaching conversations, but they're also encouraged to go on some self-directed learning with the digital coach, the learning journey, Dynamo, choosing goals, being fed bite-sized cards with information and ideas that support the coaching work you're doing live or in person. So this was the visual we used to help you think about how to scale our diagnostics, to increase self-awareness and scale your impact. So we started with talking about individuals and using this personality and values, these tools to help leaders understand who they are in a deeper way, to ask better questions, to really make those coaching conversations more strategic and meaningful based on who they are, their strengths, their opportunities. Now we're going to move a level up to think about the insights you can provide leaders about their team, their colleagues, the people that they work with, which I found personally has been a game changer when it comes to coaching. So, most leaders go through some sort of assessment work or go through some psychometrics at the start of a coaching engagement, but I find that it's difficult to provide them that information about the people they work with, because it's a targeted population that receive the psychometrics that the company wants to invest in. But with deeper signals, you're able to scale that and then use that information and feed that back to the leaders. So that's what we'll be talking about today. Reese is going to talk a little bit about the science of teams and why we're so invested in teams on our platform and in our resources and tools. And then we'll move to the platform itself and actually visualize some of this for you. So how you can compare people, how you can compare people to teams, the different sort of use cases and real life examples, things that I've done as a coach and how I've used the data to help inspire me, answer some questions, and how you can use the data to propose more strategic offerings to your clients based on the themes and the shared needs of individuals. And then how you can engage leaders in that team development with the coaching and team reports that we have. So with that, Reese, why don't you talk a little bit about why we and everyone is buzzing about teams right now?
Absolutely. Well, I think, we are experiencing a crisis of misunderstanding. I know that's maybe a little bold and exaggerated, but I think the evidence is out there. When you look at how people feel about their work, they are increasingly disengaged. People would rather fire their boss than get a pay rise. People feel that they are not supported. They don't understand their colleagues. And as managers, the biggest determinant of disengagement is poor management or experiencing conflict and tension at work. And so we all know, my conversations with each of you before today, we all know the importance of personality at work. We understand that the way in which we behave, collaborate, and lead is shaped by our dispositions, our kind of natural tendencies, and these things can help us or hinder us. But most importantly, the way that we can change those things so we can work more effectively as individuals is through self awareness and then receive coaching and feedback to turn that awareness into some form of action. Now, that's all well and good, but I think a big challenge to coaching or really behavior change is that we oftentimes focus on the individual. And everything that we know about personality is that it does not operate in a vacuum. It doesn't matter if you are neurotic, it doesn't matter if you're disciplined or curious, if you are living by yourself on a desert island. Your personality does matter if you are sharing that desert island with someone else. And therein lies the true potential or opportunity for coaching with teams. That is, our individual tendencies are much more consequential when we are forced to interact and cooperate or communicate with others and those around us. So, the more that we can understand, leverage, and improve relationships, the more we can improve the way that we team and the way that we lead and the way that we build organizations. The reason why I think this is more important, more so than ever, is when we just look ahead around some of the challenges and disruptions that are coming down the line. Like in the age of AI, where most of our work is going to be increasingly automated, what is left for us to do? And I take a pretty optimistic look around how AI is going to shape the world of work. I don't believe it's going to remove our input, our role in the workplace from existence, but rather it's going to shift around what does talent look like. And I think the future of talent in the age of AI is going to be related to being emotionally intelligent. It's going to be related to ability to be curious. It's going to be related to our ability to collaborate. Because ultimately, when you remove all the rote, mundane, routine tasks, our ability to collaborate and work together is going to be how stuff gets done, and that's going to be more important. So when it comes to team behavior, being able to collaborate with others is going to become one of the primary or most sought after talents that we're going to be seeing in the modern workplace, even more so than current times. And we've seen that start to happen, or that transition happen, post pandemic with virtual working and so on. So personality is important for team success. And our colleagues and founders, Thomas Chimera and Dave Winsborough, have these two amazing articles on HBR that we'll share with you after the session, which really takes a closer look at the science of team effectiveness and ultimately where does personality play within it. Because there's many things that interact and shape team performance, right? The functional and hard skills of a team obviously contribute towards team success. The resources that they find that they have, the culture that they operate within, the wider systems and norms, all of these things interact. However, when you control for all of those things, it is our personality that shapes team behavior the most. And really, that's because teams who have high levels of emotional intelligence are able to understand, communicate, and adjust themselves based on what other people are thinking and feeling. Teams that have diverse personalities are what we call cognitively diverse. So they're able to understand, leverage the different attitudes, styles, ways of making decisions. But most importantly, teams that receive feedback and can talk about their individual styles in an open and frank way have more psychological safety. And that is fundamental here, right? And that's what you all do when you are working with individuals and coaches, is trying to create a culture whereby people can be vulnerable, can talk honestly about the ways in which they can improve as individuals and as teams, because that builds trust. And trust builds cohesion. And these are foundational things that you need to be a high performing team. And so then just to zoom out a little bit, there's kind of two simple rules of thumb around how personality impacts performance. That is, it drives individual behavior. So we can all think of a single employee whose toxic behaviors, say, eroded trust and morale, which then lowered the performance of the rest of the group. And then similarly, personality impacts process. If you have a team of, let's say, very introverted and undisciplined individuals, they're going to struggle to follow processes. They're going to struggle to meet demands and actually work together. So I share this because when you are thinking about coaching teams or where does personality fit um, within that framework, you can think about it on two levels. Like, how is this one individual impacting the team's behavior via a team's performance via their behavior? And also, what is the wider impact that the team's aggregate has on the performance of the on the process and systems that they find themselves within? So then, another heuristic, and this is, I have to credit this one to my colleague Dave Rinsberg, who came up with this. When you look at the composition of high performing teams, they can be thought of across hard skills. So, do they have the right mission? Do they have the right tasks? Are they the right size? Do they have the right resources, et cetera, et cetera? Do they have the right soft skills? So, are they cohesive? Can they communicate effectively? Do they have trust? But then underlying all of that is what he calls deep skills. Do we have the right personalities and values within this organization or within this team? We can think of it a bit like an iceberg. I know psychologists love to use that model, but it does work really well here. And that if we have teams understand and leverage each other's personalities and values in the right way, you can then build the soft skills and then the hard skills that are needed to drive performance. I'm sure we've all been in teams or witnessed teams that have, technically brilliant people, but just can't get aligned and learn to work together. Or we've seen teams that are super cohesive and it's very harmonious and they love each other, they have great energy, but they're hopelessly ineffective because they're lacking some other things. And it's about getting these balances across these three dimensions right. So when we coach teams or when we work with coaches, we really strive to push them to think across these three levels, but most importantly, get that deep skills right, because that's going to be the cornerstone for the wider coaching engagement. And that's where really deeper signals fits in. We can give you that insight to target these behaviors that impact team performance so you can then build the rest of the engagement on top of it.
Team initiatives really fail typically because they only focus on one of these buckets. They just do a communication training for everyone, but without accounting for the performance goals, the mission, the culture of the organization and the team itself. Or they understand, what needs to happen, the performance goals, and they maybe tailor the content and the agenda based on that, but they never bring in, who are the people on this team and what are our natural behavioral tendencies and what does that say about how we interact. So I want to ask the group, what are you hearing from your clients? What are people asking for? I know we get a lot of soft skills training asks, we have a lot of conflict on this team, or we just want a team building session. And as good IO psychologists or coaches, you have to do a lot of digging to find out what they really need. And sometimes what they ask for isn't what you end up proposing. But I'm just curious, what are you hearing right now? Maybe there's some trends.
I'm hearing teams who want a quick fix. Like, stuff isn't right, can you fix it in 1 or 2 sessions? And it just can't be done, it just takes time. And usually it's people are not focusing on quality conversations and really taking the time to build that trust and get to know each other. As you know, I use deeper signals a lot with teams, and I think it's a great place to start with understanding the differences and more than that, appreciating the differences, in the rest of the team. And so just, helping teams to slow down, to talk to each other, and not to always be trying to, tick boxes or achieve goals all the time, but actually, particularly senior leadership teams, taking the time, spending time together and talking, and really exploring where each other person comes from and why that's important to them. It just over time builds that trust where they can have more robust conversations. But they're always in a hurry, and that's the thing that you have to really struggle against first, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Gretchen. Thanks for sharing. There is no quick fix. and it's hard to kind of demonstrate, I think, value like immediately, because it does take time to build. And it's like, when a team trusts each other, and it's very easy to see when they don't trust each other, but it's quite ambiguous around how they move from one state to the next. And it is a function of time. It's a function of creating space. And I think when the fact that they're looking for a quick fix is kind of a symptom of the problem. It's like trying to move quick, trying to get stuff done, which I totally understand. However, building trust, alignment, safety, it requires the leader to be like, hey, okay, this is kind of time for us all to just be with each other, to talk about what's working, what's not working, and then do that repeatedly. It's uncomfortable. No one likes to do it at first, but it is like a muscle. And the more that we can encourage leaders to lean into that, to protect that time, they will see those benefits. But yeah, it's like ice skating uphill a little bit at first.
They say they want, a communication, a training in 2 hours, but without that foundational, conversation about who you are and what's important to you, how you communicate and your strengths and risks, that really takes up a bulk of it. So you can't rush through that. But I think one advantage of our system is that people can use the self-directed resources to supplement some of that. So after this session is over, encouraging, I think that's something that maybe these clients would like to hear, is that, okay, even if we only have 2 hours, it'll be on you a little bit as a leader to encourage these things, but each individual can take responsibility and go on these independent learning journeys that will contribute to the team dynamics and the team goals. But creating those follow-up meetings and keeping that momentum going is, I know, a challenge for coaches and consultants all the time. But anyone else have anything to share about what they've been hearing, the asks they've been receiving in regards to teams?
Hi, I'm Nancy.
Hey, Nancy.
I had an experience recently where, I'm starting to see, particularly this one client, they have a lot of Gen Z teams, like they're younger people on the teams. And what I've been noticing is it's kind of that whole kind of quiet quitting thing where they just don't say anything. And then the leader notices that kind of the air's gone out of the room and the team is losing their effectiveness. And then the next thing you know, one individual is saying, oh, I want to go to part-time. And then the next person is saying, I'm thinking about leaving. And so, from my perspective, the encouragement is have the conversation with these folks, sit down and demonstrate, as the leader, demonstrate the soft skills. You have the tools and understand the different personalities already because they've shared their assessments with each other, and show compassion and just ask what's creating this response in them. And this just happened a couple of weeks ago, and and also to your point, Stephanie, was, as you and Reese both know, I've been really trying to dig into the Dynamo tool lately. And so I turned the leader onto that. I'm like, start using this, because she has a driven personality and no one else does on the team. And so it's very much a learning process for that leader to communicate, and to Gretchen's point, to slow down enough to communicate where they can hear her. And so I suggested working on the dynamo with the driven part of her personality. And then also, just engage them and let them know it's okay to have the conversation starting one-on-one. And they really turned it around. I mean, she had one person who did wind up leaving, but that was okay because that was a decision that was made for other reasons, not just as a reaction.
That's a great success story, Nancy. That's really interesting, and a great example of how you need to focus not only on the collective team, culture and how people are interacting, but dive deeper with each individual. and have those one-on-one conversations to engage each person based on who they are and meet them where they're at.
Yeah.
So that's, really why we created these team dynamic reports and included the individual coaching reports as part of that, to acknowledge that you can't just look at one or the other. Reese, do you want to talk a little bit about, the sort of the history of including the team analytics on the platform and how it's evolved?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think, okay, there's lots of different perspectives that we had on this. I think the first is really around how assessment feedback has been traditionally delivered. In that when we look at other very scientific tools, each dimension is scored on 0 to 100, and it basically communicates whether you have something or you don't have something. You are conscientious or you're not conscientious. And that in itself implies there is a desirable state, which does not align with everything that we know about the science of personality. There are strengths and opportunities on either side. The second thing is, how then can we better communicate that you have, these strengths, but there is an opportunity for you to lean into a different way of working or a different perspective that you could take that may help you be more flexible and adaptive at work. And so that's how we came up with the core drivers as pairs, right? Being candid versus considerate, flexible versus disciplined. And really, when you look at the report feedback, the vast majority of it is about understanding yourself relative to others, and in particular, understanding how you are different to the opposite core driver that you may have. And then all the feedback that we provide individuals is not about kind of leaning into more of what you're already good at. You already do that very well, but rather, how can you find individuals on your team that have a different core driver to you? What can you do to best support each other? So how can you complement each other? So this goes back to the idea of having a cognitively diverse team. But then also, what can you learn from them? If I'm a very disciplined individual, I work really well at setting plans, following guides, sending instructions, etc., etc. But how can I be more adaptive, more flexible, more easily adjusted to things when they go wrong, or if there's uncertainty? I need to find people in my team that are more flexible. They can teach me how to behave in that kind of way. And also I can, through observation and experience, learn new strategies of conducting and managing myself. So everything that we do with our personality tools and our values tools is through the lens of the other. How do you compare to people that are different to you? And what can you learn from each other? And how can you best support each other? The final thing that we wanted to do at Deeper Signals, and this is much more from a technology product perspective, is we saw how complicated it was to give feedback to teams. That is, the traditional way of running team sessions would require you to manually send out invites to everyone, pull their data, and then clean it up in Excel and then build visualizations. What we wanted to do was provide coaches with more data at their fingertips. And so we have real-time dashboards that can produce charts and graphs similar to what you're seeing on the screen, whereby it's very easy for you to build new teams, to visualize the diversity and average scores within a team, so that you can, with less effort and more efficiently, do what you do best, which is understanding what the hell's going on within the team, and then providing suggestions and guiding them through that process. And so you don't have to spend more of your time kind of doing logistical, boring things, which only serves to get in the way.
And I can attest to that, spending hours building these team reports. And it was probably, I don't know, maybe 2015 where I dreamed this up, where you could, pull in different people and their results would show in these nice charts and graphs. So when we created this team report, I was obviously super excited, but even in this last year, the ability to create these custom teams and change that team data in the actual team reports. I told the devs that are offsite that was the biggest win from my perspective, because it was like a dream come true. So we have many certified coaches on the call now, so you'll recognize these charts and graphs. But for those of you that are new, these are the types of visualizations that you see when you log in, and you can select different groups, different functions. You can tag participants in lots of different ways to segment this data to get these visualizations. And this chart on the left is what we use. What we use for cognitive diversity. So when we think about where people fall on these scales, we have this nice visual of where the circles are bigger, we have more people with that score, and where there are gaps that might speak to what we're missing on this team. So in this example, you see this is a very reserved team. And, maybe this relates to what Nancy, you were saying, this quiet quitting when people aren't happy, when they're not engaged. Look at the team profile. Is this a group that has this risk of becoming more withdrawn when they feel disengaged, when they're under a lot of stress or pressure? If you have a team that's highly outgoing and highly driven, you probably won't see some of those behaviors, but you might actually be able to predict this quiet quitting by looking at some of this team data. And a profile like this might cause you to think, okay, I really should engage one-on-one if I'm noticing these signs of people, not performing. But it could be symptomatic of just their behavioral tendencies, especially under stress or pressure. So I'm curious to know, when you do team sessions, what charts and graphs do you prioritize, and how do you use this data in your team sessions? I'd love to learn from some of you here today. Gretchen, I feel like I just want to call on you. I know you have some examples.
Yeah, I didn't want to just jump in there. I definitely use what I call the bubble chart, which is what we can see on the screen, and also the wagon wheel, just because they're, great visuals of, the individual differences in the team, if you like. And with that bubble chart, you can clearly see where the gaps might be as well. So talking about things like group think and stuff. When I'm working with teams and we are visualizing team personality, I'm also getting them to recreate the scales by moving around the room and almost creating that sort of bell curve. Obviously negotiating with them beforehand that they're happy to share their different scores, but there's a lot of fun. I think there's a lot of fun in a session like that, a team session where you're visualizing and having a look at, who's similar to me, who's different from me across all of the scales. It makes it fun, as well as obviously the serious side. Definitely use these charts. Sometimes I will use where there's sometimes I'll use the subscale charts as well, where there's an obvious really, really low subscale, really low on being organized or something like that, and really hone in on that and sort of chat about, processes and seeing things through and how you organize the work. But these two charts are really important. And then of course the risks chart as well. Yeah.
I've been using the subscale charts more as well. When you see a lot of variability, not only for individuals, but for teams, that can create some really meaningful dialogue.
Yeah, it's really interesting where they've got, like a lot of high kind of scores on subscales, and then there's one real outlier, which can be tripping them up a wee bit. Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, related to that point, like one exercise that Stephanie and I run when we run team sessions is we kind of run a bit of a goal setting exercise. We have the team think about what are they trying to achieve, and then what do they need from a soft skills perspective to be successful. We have them then draft on say a big whiteboard. They write down what core drivers they think they need, right? So if you think about each one on the spectrum, they say, oh, we need to be more considerate because we're in a customer facing role, but we need to be flexible because we need to be responsive, et cetera, et cetera. And then what we do is we show the actual profile of the team. So then they get this juxtaposition, like, do we have the things that we think we need, or are there gaps? And if so, how do we close those gaps? Or if we are very considerate and we're saying we need to be more considerate, what is stopping us from kind of really leveraging that quality? That's a great way of kind of connecting, this exercise or the fact that you're taking this personality assessment with something that's very tangible, KPI driven, and also, Gretchen, to your point, it creates a lot of lively discussion. Like, you can have a lot of fun with it, and get some heated discussion, which is always a good thing.
That sounds like a great idea. I think I might steal that one. Thanks.
That's what we want you to do. And I did a spin on that recently where it was a larger team, maybe 16, and I split them into groups of 3 or 4 and had them think about what the top 3 core drivers should be for that group. So instead of moving the needle on each one, what are the 3 most important drivers? And they came up with some different combinations. There was maybe one that was consistent throughout each group, but then they could sort of debate about why they thought it was more important to be disciplined versus pragmatic or whatever it might be. And that created a lot of great discussion as well. And if you want to get really creative, with one team, I asked them to draw a picture of the team's personality based on those core drivers. And they had a lot of fun with the artistic side of this as well.
Yeah. I often run a team quiz at the end of the top 3 drivers and have them up there, get them to, pick who is where, and then pop pictures of them up beside who owns what top 3 drivers. That's kind of a fun thing to do as well.
I love that. I think just hearing this, we need to create kind of a shared document or space where we can contribute these workshop activities. There's so many things we can do, and I know a lot of you are doing things that maybe we haven't even thought about yet. So the more we can share, I think that'd be great.
I'd love that. I'd love that, Stephanie, because I've got L plates on, so I'm a little bit unconfident about this, and I'm intrigued by what Reese and you and Gretchen are saying, because you want to have fun. And my concern in anticipation of the group that I'll be taking in January is that they'll be defensive. So I'm trying to bring in the energy of trust and safety and openness without fear of being judged. So having that sort of playful side, but it's you just sometimes don't know which personalities and how they're going to respond in the room at the time.
It's
I
true.
think that's a very good point.
Yeah.
It's like the way that you can get around it, or to at least put your best foot forward, is have the leader be a part of this feedback experience. Like, can you work with the leader ahead of time to get them comfortable sharing their results? Like, if it is a very low trust team because something's happened, and or it's a new team and so we're getting to know each other, having the leader or the leaders put themselves forward and talk about their results, share them, put their core drivers up on the screen, have them be a role model for what it means to be vulnerable, to role model the value that you get out of these kind of conversations. And then from there, hopefully the rest of the team members will start to open up. Another thing that we do to kind of build on that trust and that safety, and also it can be fun, is an exercise called antimatter. So what we'll do is we'll find people within the team that have opposite core drivers. So we'll put a candid person with a considerate person, and then we'll give them, say, conversation starters. And the idea is they would both explore or communicate to each other how they would approach the same type of problem or the same type of situation. It's a great way of viewing or gaining new perspectives. It's a great way of neutralizing maybe some of the negative emotions you may feel for people that are different to you, because you can now understand that they're not just being a pain in my butt, but rather they fundamentally view the world or in a very different way, and there's some value to be had there. So the more that you can do then the opposite as well, which is like same. So get people that are the same or that have the same core drivers to kind of realize that in each other. That's a great way of building kind of connections and bonds, because we're social animals, and for better or worse, we are identity driven. So can we build more in groups within a team? And so can we get people to say, hey, I'm disciplined, you're disciplined, great, like this is all the funny quirks that we have, and how we both like to structure at work. And then you the opposite, to try and push them to build that trust by exploring the opposite.
And something fun you can do there in the sames is have them come up with a character that represents that driver. So we had a group of passionate people, and their sort of mascot was George Costanza or Larry David, that very neurotic personality, feeling things deeply and worrying and stressing about things. And they all had a good laugh about that. So after this session, we do have a playbook. It doesn't have all of these activities, but it does have some foundational core activities that managers or coaches can use with their teams. Some of you might have this resource already, but we'll be sure you all have that to help with these sessions. And it's something we can build on and add to in the future.
Awesome.
Can I ask a question or two? Is that okay?
Yes, absolutely.
So first of all, I'm just anticipating some questions that might come up. And so I think one of them would be from the team, like, what are we supposed to look like? What are we trying to look like? And I think from a soft skills perspective, and especially from a personality perspective, this kind of is what it is, and it's about how we kind of make adjustments and changes to most appropriately kind of like work together. But adding on to that, I'm wondering if you all have experimented with any kind of like specific ROI that you can share with them, maybe like a pre-post kind of situation, so that it would be easier for them to, I don't know, convince their CFO that this would be a valuable thing to go through. Even if it was like an engagement survey or some kind of team performance kind of thing, where we're showing that there's actually like a big gain by doing some kind of intervention like we're talking about here. Has anyone experimented with something like that?
That's a great question. And that's something we're always thinking about. How can we demonstrate that change and that value? And I think for us, we've done, just your simple feedback surveys after these sessions, but I think we did a few periodically to collect some qualitative data as well in terms of how the team is doing. But I think that's something we should add to our list as well, Reese, is maybe sharing some of that with our coaching network as materials they can use to justify the investment.
Definitely. I think some more specific points, David, is to your first one, like what should we look like? As you say, it is what it is, right? Yeah, you can bring certain members in that are going to add and shift the profile of the team, but of course there are other things to consider. It's more about understanding the card you've been dealt and then learning to work effectively together. The second thing is, you don't necessarily need to answer that question for them. Like the whole purpose of a team is that they can build that alignment themselves. And so going back to that goal setting exercise I suggested, like have them chart the course around what the team should look like given how they see the goals. And obviously the leader plays a part in that. And then it's about what they have versus kind of what they think they need. And then to your final point about demonstrating our ROI, we have some evidence where we've polled people after feedback sessions, how much did people learn about their colleagues, or have they been able to improve their soft skills or ability to collaborate? So we have some statistics there which I can share. But then two, we're working on a product right now, an extension of Dynamo, whereby your team will be able to give you feedback at the end of your development journeys. So you will be able to demonstrate that going through a deeper signals assessment feedback experience is contributing towards the readiness and potential of your teams and of your organization. So via a Pulse 360, you'll be able to get some of that data, which will be helpful for the individual. Am I improving? It'll be helpful for the manager. Is my team improving? And then at an organizational level, really demonstrating that you're pushing a needle on building the right soft skills for your company. So more to come, though.
And we purposefully don't have these profiles of success, right? We've had clients and people ask about that, but it is so contextual and it's so complicated, and there's not going to be a perfect score, for a sales team. There might be certain drivers that, intuitively make more sense for a sales or marketing team versus accounting, finance, that type of thing. But we want to avoid that cookie cutter approach of there is one good or bad profile that everyone should be striving for. It's more about the interaction and leveraging what you're good at and being aware of things that could get in your way. It's something we're thinking about. So I'm going to move us forward here since time is flying by. And I want to talk about this comparison feature. So we have the team reports that visualize this data and the analytics, the insights tab on the dashboard that shows the different charts and graphs. But we also have a compare tab that I think deserves a spotlight, because it's been really helpful for me personally in my coaching conversations. And I'll tell you a little bit more about how I use that compare feature. Even within a coaching conversation, if I don't plan, it's not something I planned ahead of time, I can pull up the platform and maybe they bring up a new problem or have a specific question about someone on their team. I can pull up this data instantly, and it is really helpful to facilitate these conversations. So in this example, it was after a team session actually that the leader of this group said, I have these two individuals, they're butting heads, they won't get along, they're always running into obstacles, and I just don't know how to help them. So we pulled up this comparison chart and saw, it wasn't this example, this is just demo data, but in this example I'm speaking about, they were complete opposites on almost every scale. And so we had a really interesting conversation about how these two individuals just see the world differently, and how, it might be an uphill battle to get them to come around, but we need to find something that unites them, whether it's the tasks they're working on. And I encourage them to take the core values assessment to see if there was any alignment there. But in this example, if we had more time, I'd maybe ask us to go through this together and get your thoughts and opinions, but I know it takes some time to digest as well. Just at first glance, you can see where the biggest gaps are. So they're both very reserved. So they might not be coming together. If they're having conflict, they're going to withdraw. They're not going to maybe communicate those feelings or frustrations openly, because it's more comfortable to just close their door and keep their heads down. But where we're seeing the biggest gaps are, passionate and stable jump out to me. So when you're thinking about how people react under stress or pressure, they're reacting or responding in very different ways. Kaylin is feeling things very deeply, maybe more emotional, more likely to experience stress and worry when things are going wrong, whereas Glenn is going to be much more stable. So that could be something you dig into. Are they experiencing conflict because of the environment, the things that are going on around them? And communication style I look at as well. So one is much more candid than the other. So when they are coming together to have those conversations, there may be one is being perceived as overly aggressive, whereas that's just a preferred style of getting straight to the point. But maybe you could coach them individually to show a bit more care and concern in their words and their tone. But you see that they unite on their flexibility, and they're both very pragmatic. So you can call out those shared strengths and help them understand where they connect. And like I said earlier, the core values can be a really nice supplement here as well. So when I look at their core values, I see they both value expedience. So that tells me, they kind of choose their own personal way over the others. They have their own moral compass, and maybe those are in conflict, but they prioritize kind of themselves over what others might be thinking or the way things should be done typically. But interestingly enough, they're both higher on tradition. So maybe as a leader, you think about creating a bit more structure and process, because that's something that they both can agree on, that they value, that they want to follow. So just a quick example of how you can look at these results in real time and start making these hypotheses to ask better questions in those coaching conversations. Another use case is to compare teams. So maybe you're coaching a leader that is about to engage or work with another function, another team in a completely different business area on a new project, and you want to help them prepare for that collaboration, what to expect from this other team, and ensure that there's understanding and alignment where there might be conflict. And you can pull up both teams very easily without looking at individuals if they're tagged correctly. And you can see, okay, they're both going to speak in a more candid way, but our team is more pragmatic and also more laid back, a little bit more flexible. So what does that mean? So another example of using this compare feature. And third is individual to team. So if I use this one a lot, if the person you're coaching just hires someone new, they are onboarding them, they want to get to know them, they have this really nice, easy snapshot about how they compare to the team. So where are they going to add some diversity? This person is, so it says team 1 and 2, but team 1 can be a single individual. So they're going to add more pragmatism. They're going to add more flexibility. They're a bit more passionate. So how can you as their manager support them and help them lean into those unique strengths? And then where will they fit in really well with the team? So they both have a very candid style. That won't be something you need to spend time on, as much time on, because that's more natural to them. But what's even better about this is we do this interpretation for you in those coaching reports and those team reports. So based on someone's personality, here's some tips on how to bring out the best in them. So with that, I think we should turn to our platform and actually show you what that looks like. We have these team skills as well, which maybe this turns into a completely separate session, because we could talk a lot about how to read the data and then propose solutions based on what you're seeing in the team. So if a team comes to you and says, innovation is the hot topic in our organization right now, we need a session on creativity and innovation. If you look at this team skills graph, right, initially it jumps out at you, that might not be the best use of their time. They have high conflict potential. They don't understand each other as well, and they're maybe lacking that motivation and drive collectively. So you might propose a completely different topic based on the needs of that team, and the manager might thank you for that, because they don't know what else to choose in terms of a session topic. So let's switch gears here and jump into these reports. But while we do that, any thoughts about the comparison feature or using the team skills? Are you getting inspired to maybe use some of these resources in a new way, or maybe it fits in with a request that you have currently? Laurie, I'm seeing a head nod there. Is this hitting home?
Yeah, no, this is great, Stephanie and Reese. Thank you. It's inspiring.
Excellent. So let's just take a quick look at some of these features in action. So what you're seeing is the user dashboard. So we're able to open up a team report. And so here the manager or the leader of this team is able to learn about everything that Stephanie has just described. So for example, they're able to understand at a high level, how this team likes to work and collaborate through the lens of the core drivers. They're able to unpack that at a greater level by pulling out their risks as well. So this team is very pragmatic, reserved, and flexible, but they're only in the, say, medium range. So that would then cause me to think, as a manager or as a coach, there's probably a lot more going on in terms of there being more variation or diversity within this team. As I scroll down, I can then start to see some analytics. I can view my profile as the manager relative to that of the team. I can see that compared to the group, I'm going to be more driven, but we're also somewhat pragmatic, reserved, and flexible. So there's some similarities, and also there's some differences. And then using the cognitive diversity, or that bubble chart, we can see where the variation is within the team. And so now we can understand the broad tendencies within the group, but also where are they similar, where are they different, and ultimately, what am I meant to do about that as a leader? And so the rest of the report is really designed to help leaders, manage and collaborate across the differences. So how can they leverage the diversity and adapt their leadership style to meet the needs of the team, alongside mitigate some of the risks and challenges that may present themselves where they're most similar. Right? So how can we challenge and avoid some of the groupthink? The rest of the report provides practical advice to that leader about things they should start, stop, and keep doing. And as well, if you have a Coach Max subscription, we're also able to overlay some competency feedback within that team as well. Some more tactical or targeted information about some soft skills. Now, you have access to this as a coach as well. So you can use this report to really guide some of the suggestions that you make towards a leader. And of course, some of the themes and ideas that you would explore in your feedback session. Now, also as a coach and as a team leader, you can pull up coaching reports for each team member themselves. So this is really a tool for leaders. And it's a way of bringing the leader into your coaching intervention, right? Rather than, you working across the entire group. It's like, how can you get the leader to become a coach to their team? And again, further embed a culture of feedback, transparency, psychological safety within the group. Well, this is one way you can do it. Managers can access a very simplified report, again, of the core drivers for each team member. They can access practical coaching questions to help the team member think more broadly about their own development and elicit some ideas for the manager to think about how I can support them. And then we're able to provide some practical tips around how you should best manage each team member. So again, going back to what I said earlier around a lot of disengagement, tension, ineffectiveness being the result of a misunderstanding. Managers don't know how to leverage, engage, or deploy each of their team members. We're giving them the guide and the tools to be able to have those conversations. If we just zoom up a little bit now, we can just look at some of the analytics just to demonstrate how easy it is for you to build those comparisons that Stephanie just took you through. With just a few clicks, you can compare and contrast your different teams and individuals. So here, for example, is the view if you have a Coach Max subscription, you're able to see the aggregate core drivers, core values. With just one click, I can pull up a team profile, all the charts update, giving me everything I need to know ahead of a workshop about this team's style and profile. If I wanted to compare, let's say you're coaching me as a new leader for a team of a leadership team within an organization. With just one click, you can see my profile on the left, the profile of the team on the right, and then you can use this to then think about, okay, what should I understand and know about myself, or what should you tell a coach? What should you coach a leader to be more aware of, given that they're moving into this new team? Or again, if they're struggling to work with a specific individual, can we compare their profile to another team member to highlight where there may be challenges and opportunities for them to work better together? For example, my profile's on the left, Glenn's profile's on the right. We can see we're very different. So this is where that antimatter exercise could be helpful for these two people to work through, so they can see the different perspectives, understand the value in each other, and remove some of that conflict potential that is emerging within the team. So all in all, really via a platform, we're not only giving you very simple and straightforward analytics to have deeper insights into your people and guide more data-driven coaching, but we're able to provide tools and insights back to the leaders and teams that you're coaching so that they can be a part of that process. So that way you are not the ones driving everything, but rather you can build them into the coaching experience, create some accountability, create some autonomy, and have them be more in charge of and direct what they want to improve on, and give them the tools to make that happen. Again, they will also have access to their own reports, Dynamo, and so on. So you can really use everything that we offer to scaffold and scale your one-to-many and one-to-one engagements.
So I switched here just to David's point. We have some slides that we can share with you after this that highlight sort of why it's important that managers and leaders invest in teams and feedback. So we have some statistics and some just different use cases for this team report. So like we said in the first session, we want you to use to steal these slides, to steal these statistics, cite us, and to give you more credibility and proof that investing in these things will really pay off. I think in future sessions, we would really like to do some practice interpretation. So we didn't get to that today, but I think it's really helpful to look at some of the charts and graphs on our demo account, or you could bring some anonymous data to us, maybe a team you're currently working with, and use each other to talk about, how do you interpret this? What questions would you ask? What do you see here? Because the more you can practice that, the more you start to spot those trends, and it just gets easier and easier. So that's still to come, but keep a lookout for more interpretation type workshops in the future. So with that, I think we're at time. Any final words from you, Reese, and want to give them some info on our next session?
Absolutely. So I think, like, I know many of you are active users of Deeper Signals, and appreciate you being a part of this process, wanting to share and contribute to this community we're building. And I think, speaking to some of you outside of today, I know that the team aspect has been a real unlock for you as a coach. I think we strive to make tools as easy as possible for you all, and ultimately easy and practical for your end users, for your customers as well. I think when it comes to using personality tools in particular, as you know, it's one lens within the team's behavior. And so the challenge is, how do you use this tool to facilitate, a larger conversation and explore the interaction between personality and the broader environment. If we get that bit right, we can coach people to a deeper level. But I know we had to rush through some of the other examples, so we'll pick some of that up at the start of our next session. The final session of this module, but by no means the end of what we're trying to build here in terms of a coaching community and community of practice, is going to be on December the 12th. And we're really going to take everything we've been exploring over the last two sessions into a broader look at how you can deeply embed Deeper Signals within an organization. So we'll be sharing some case studies around how we have first started working with leaders and coached them, then rolled out to their teams, and then the wider organization, really unlocking self-awareness, scaling coaching, scaling feedback to drive performance across each level of the business. And so we're looking forward to sharing more of that, as I think that's really a big opportunity for coaches using a tool is winning work and delivering at scales that haven't previously been possible using more traditional tools. But great.
So with that, we'll send you on your way, but thank you so much for joining. And if you have any questions or ideas that you want to follow up on, just send me an email, but we can absolutely pick up where we left off on December 12th and keep this conversation going.
Thank you. That was great. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Larry.
Good to see you.
Thank you all. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.